So the strangest thing just happened today and also, more importantly, yesterday. But let's focus on today. Justin Trudeau actually appeared in the House of Commons for question period. Yeah, that's right. He actually showed up to do his job, which is very bizarre. But what might actually be considered even more bizarre than that is that the NDP has actually sided with the Conservatives in this weird new coalition. Now, I have a prediction. Justin Trudeau, it's no secret that he is absolutely tanking in the polls, and it doesn't matter if an election is held today, yesterday, in 2 years, 5 years. Everybody and their mother has lost faith in Justin Trudeau. And so, of course, Jagmeet Singh and the NDP party cockroaches are going to where there is the most amount of popularity, which would be the Conservative Party of Canada. So I hope that Pierre Poilievre really is aware that Jagmeet Singh is this floater who doesn't really have a spine because he's flip-flopped so much on the carbon tax. And that's kind of the center of discussion here in Canada is Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party of Canada made a 3-year exemption or a pause on home heating for oil only for Atlantic Canadians, the East Coast who to be to buy to guys. And that has pissed off every single province and territory. Why is our home heating not exempt from the carbon tax? We still have to pay a shit ton of money. And it's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. And the NDP party, Jagmeet Singh, has been pushing for the carbon tax to evolve and be more of a taxation theft for Canadians. So it's so weird that they're now saying, well, we should just pause that and we're actually going to side with the Conservatives, which is what they voted on yesterday. Now, unfortunately, that didn't turn out in our favor. There were more nays than there were yays to push that bill or push that into an actual, some sort of tangible bill. And well, here's where it gets even weirder. The Bloc Québécois, the Separatist Party of Canada, has now sided with Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, where they agree that everybody should have to pay the carbon tax for home heating, and the only exemption is the 3% of Canadians who live on the East Coast of Canada. Welcome back to another video, everybody. It's Bizarro World. Jagmeet Singh is with Pierre and the Bloc Québécois is with Trudeau. It seems like the parties just kind of swapped their allegiance. Not that the Bloc was ever in an allegiance or loyal with the Conservatives, but if you had to pick 2 weeks ago who the Bloc would side more with, I think all roads lead to Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party of Canada. Before we get into it, though, I want to encourage you guys to give a like and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It really helps grow the channel. So we're going to be taking a look at the question period highlights. I know you guys want the news and all those different videos. Those are coming. Don't get me wrong. I just got back on the horse. I took a multi-day hiatus and I'm back into the groove now. And so it's a bit of a slow roll effect. But let's take a look at this highlight reel of question period from today where Pierre Poilievre just basically says, man, the NDP keeps flip-flopping. You can't trust them. So does the Bloc. And Trudeau he's dead wrong. Here we go.
Questions, questions orales.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition. And Trudeau is seated right across from Pierre.
Prime Minister is desperate to save his carbon tax, especially on heat. And he started by giving a temporary pause to some people in a region where he was plummeting in the polls and his caucus was revolting. But then he found that the entire country was in revolt and he needed a new coalition partner to save him from my common sense confidence vote, to take the heat off, to take the tax off the heat. He got that support from the Bloc Québécois. We now learn that he has been in discussions with the Bloc to help him stay in power for 2 years. What did he promise the separatists for them to enter into this costly carbon tax coalition?
Wow! Drop some apples in the chat for Pierre.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, contrary to the divisive rhetoric that the Leader of the Opposition is putting forward, the measures we announced on
he's the one who's divisive.
People on oil to heat pumps apply right across the country. The doubling of the rural top-up right across the country. We're going to continue to work with Canadians to phase out home heating oil, which is dirtier and more expensive. And I want to recognize that we are willing to work with anyone in this House who will step up in the fight against climate change. And I thank the Leader of the Bloc Québécois for continuing to be firm on building a better future for all our kids, on fighting for climate change, against climate change on this and in other occasions. I welcome all parliamentarians to stand up in the fight against climate change.
Oh, they're all standing up now. They're trying to show a little bit more morale and support.
The Honourable Leader.
But it's not genuine. It'll fizzle out.
He's thanking the separatists for helping him save his carbon tax and support his plan to quadruple the tax on heat, gas, and groceries. This Prime Minister is playing a very dangerous game. First, he divided Canadians by giving a temporary pause to some people in a region where he was plummeting in the polls and his caucus was revolting. When all Canadians then revolted against this divisive plan, he's turned to the separatists who say that they are going to keep him in power for 2 years and that the leader of the bloc has had a call with the Prime Minister to do it. In the interest of transparency, will the Prime Minister reveal what he promised the separatists for them to join in this costly carbon tax coalition?
Good job, Pierre. Drop a W for Pierre, everyone.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the level of divisiveness and the rhetoric of the Leader of the Opposition is truly unfortunate. Mr. Speaker, the vast majority of Canadians, like the vast majority of members in this House of Commons, recognize that climate change is real, recognize we need to continue to step up in the fight against climate change, not just for the well-being of the planet and future generations, but for families' bottom lines, for families' jobs and careers as well. And we will continue to do that. As members of this party know, of the House of Commons know, I exchange regularly with leaders of different political parties. I haven't spoken recently with the leader of the bloc except on the issue of the Middle East, but I'm always open to talking to any party leader that wants to talk about fighting climate change.
He's got some more gray hairs. Trudeau's got more gray hairs than ever.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Divide and distract from the fact that Canadians, after 8 years of his government, cannot eat, heat, or house themselves. But in a strange way, he united all Canadians at the Premier's Conference, who all agree, all 10 of them unanimously disagree that the Prime Minister's approach to take the tax off temporarily for only some. They said that this federal carbon tax policy treats Canadians differently and they expect a change. Will the Prime Minister pull together all the premiers in an emergency carbon tax conference so that we can take the tax off and keep the heat on?
Yes. Remove the tax, please.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the measures we announced a couple of weeks ago help any Canadian everywhere across the country to get off home heating oil towards using a heat pump, which is cleaner, less expensive, and better for our future. These are things that we've done right across the country. Only the Conservatives would think that taking serious action on climate change and supporting Canadians right across the country with affordability measures would be divisive. Well, it is divisive if you think that climate change is fake, but for everybody else other than the Conservative Party, we know that we can come together to fight climate change.
To fight the economy. You almost slipped up. He sure as hell wants to fight the economy.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Canadians know that the only thing fake is this Prime Minister.
Yep.
Today, the NDP flip-flopped on its flip-flop. First, they voted 16 times in favor of the carbon tax on home heat. Then they voted to quadruple the tax. Then yesterday, they panicked and flip-flopped and voted for my plan to take the tax off home heating, admitting that they were wrong all along. And now today, they said they're in favor of the tax on home heat by refusing my amendment. So will the Prime Minister tell us at 2:26 p.m. what is the NDP position on the carbon tax right now?
You're going to see an NDP Conservative coalition.
Not certain if that has to do with the administration. That question has to.
Oh, shut up!
I do.
House Speaker.
Right Honourable Prime Minister rising to his feet. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what is clear is that the Conservatives are all ready to try and divide Canadians one against the other in any possible way they can, when the reality is the only division around climate change is that Conservative politicians still doubt whether it's real or not, and certainly don't think we should be doing anything to fight climate change. However, everybody else across the country, in all different parties, knows that it's a real issue that we're going to continue to step up and fight, unlike the Conservatives that continue to look to divide and hide from the reality of climate change.
That is hilarious that Trudeau has the audacity to call somebody else
The honourable
on
member for
divisiveness.
I know that the Prime Minister's plan on home heating was cynical and divisive, but the Conservatives are no better. They're more interested in playing games than actually helping people, because if they were genuine about helping people, they would support our plan to take GST off of home heating for all Canadians, to help people access clean and affordable ways to heat their home, and to make the big oil and gas companies pay for it. But we know that the corporate Conservatives won't ever stand up to big oil and gas, but will the Prime Minister support our plan to help all Canadians?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we know that one of the things that helps Canadians is fighting climate change and supporting them in that fight against climate change. I know the NDP used to support phasing out coal. It is surprising to me that they are not supportive of phasing out heating oil, because that's exactly what
this is incredible, seeing Jagmeet turn on Trudeau.
It is dirtier and more expensive for homes right across the country, and we're facilitating the delivery of heat pumps, including for free for low-income Canadians in provinces that choose to step up and participate. We're going to continue to fight climate change. I really wish the NDP were as unequivocal as that. That's
right. Order. Order.
Prime Minister paused the paying of his carbon tax for 3% of families in region where he is plummeting in the polls. The Liberal minister from Newfoundland said if people in other regions wanted the same pause, that they should have elected Liberals. But people in York region elected Liberal MPs. In fact, 7 of them, and yet their constituents aren't getting the pause. Right. Yesterday, these MPs could have voted to take the tax off for the residents of York region, but they voted with the Prime Minister. So can anybody from York region stand up and explain their choice to leave their constituents in the cold?
Yeah, well said.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I have said a number of times in this House, we have taken action that addresses affordability for particular.
Someone screenshot
oil costs 4 times that of natural.
what's on his script and post it on Twitter.
75% in 2022, but we've done it in a manner that addresses the climate crisis at the same time and ensures affordability for people going forward. It will save $2,500 a year. It applies to people who live in every province and territory in this country, so long as provinces and territories step up. The shame in this change.
Question period priority number 1, is that what it says?
To address the climate crisis.
Okay.
I don't even know if they believe it, but they certainly don't act as though they actually think it's important.
I want to know by the end of the day, or right after this, what was on his piece of paper. Chat, if someone can screenshot that and tag me on Twitter.
Certainly doesn't help the people in Newmarket, in Aurora, in Richmond Hill, in Woodbridge, in Markham, in Stouffville, or in North York. All of these communities got sold out by their Liberal MPs, and they can't even tell people why. They had a choice to stand with their communities, and instead they stood with the Prime Minister, and now they're hiding and hoping that everybody forgets. If these MPs won't listen to their constituents, won't advocate for them in the House of Commons, and won't even stand to defend their vote, then what are they even doing here?
Wow! Oh, House Speaker is going to say, order, order. Oh, there you go. He's silencing the Conservatives. Hush, hush.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This policy choice is about both affordability and about ensuring that we are addressing the climate crisis. I call on all provinces and territories to join us, certainly the Government of Ontario. Ontario has indicated an interest in moving forward with us on co-delivering this project, which would be enormously important going forward. But I would say, Mr. Speaker, that yesterday the Leader of the Opposition essentially said that he will walk away from Canada's climate targets, eroding the Canada's credibility in the international community, eroding the ability of the world to address the climate crisis. This is enormously reckless, Mr. Speaker. It is an enormous risk for the future of our children. Shame on him.
Whoa.
The Prime Minister Minister's Christmas gift to 97% of Canadians. Merry Christmas. You're going to have a carbon tax in your home heating this winter. The Prime Minister literally gave Canadians a lump of coal by voting against a common-sense Conservative motion to take the
that's actually a
heat on. Now,
great way of putting it.
Pete's carbon tax coalition was bad, but there's a new addition to the carbon tax naughty list. The Bloc joined the Liberals and voted to keep the carbon tax on home heating this winter. Which gift did the Prime Minister leave under the separatist tree to protect his government for 2 more years?
Whoa! That was good. That was good.
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've said a number of times, it is important to actually have a plan to address critical affordability issues in a long-term way, but also to continue to address the climate crisis. Those are the measures that we have put into place. I have to say again that I do find it the height of hypocrisy that my honourable colleague across the way, who ran on a platform that included putting a price on pollution, gets up in the House today and actually says what he's saying. It is the height of hypocrisy.
The Honourable Member from Foothills.
The Prime Minister joined the separatists to divide Canadians. Those Canadians will have to pay a carbon tax on their home heating over the winter, and 3% of Canadians who will get a pause on the pain. It's clear that the Liberals and the Bloc, their Christmas gift to Canadians is to punish families for heating their homes this winter. They voted against a common-sense Conservative motion to take the tax off for every single Canadian. Again, what Christmas wish did the Prime Minister grant the separatists for the Liberals to avoid an election on the carbon tax?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources.
You know, Mr. Speaker, I think every party in this House actually is concerned about affordability issues, but the only party in this House that does not care about the climate crisis is the Conservative Party of Canada. The only party that actually has no plan to address it and doesn't even believe that climate change is real. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, the leader of the opposition essentially said he would walk away from Canada's climate targets, walk away from every member of the international community. He would walk away from our children's future, and he would walk away from a clean economy that will actually create jobs and economic opportunity across the country. Shame on him.
He's slipping, man. He's slipping. He's going to be the next Marco Mendicino.
From South Shore, St. Margaret's.
After 8 years, the revolting Atlantic Caucus and the panicking, plummeting Prime Minister now have 2 coalitions with which to flip Canadians the bird. The costly coalition with the NDP.
That's a jab about yesterday.
Everything up. Unfortunately, Canadians know too much about that. The other, according to the Quebec media, is with the separatist Bloc, who committed to keep the Liberals in power for another 2 years. The costly coalition Prime Minister is not worth the cost. Will the Prime Minister release his full carbon tax coalition agreement with the separatist Bloc?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I think my honourable friend across the way used the word revolting. You know what is revolting? Are the tactics, the circus act that is going on in the Natural Resources Committee, blocking the passage of Bill C-49. It is endangering the health and safety of the translators in that committee. It is an enormous waste of taxpayers' money. It is opposing the Premier of Nova Scotia, the Conservative Premier of Nova Scotia, and the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador. It will create jobs and economic opportunity for the future in a manner that is consistent with fighting the climate crisis. Shame on him.
Yeah, we found our next Marco Mendicino. He's going to go until he finally blows up. And then he's going to get benched.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Liberals voted down our common-sense Conservative motion to axe the carbon tax on all forms of home heating for all Canadians. Now, the NDP leader said his NDP MPs would be supporting our Conservative motion to keep the heat on. However, not all British Columbia NDP MPs voted to take the carbon tax off. Now, after 8 years of this NDP Liberal government, this Prime Minister is just not worth the cost. Will the Prime Minister quit forcing British Columbians' rates on British Columbia for the carbon tax rates, which he plans to quadruple on home heating?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I have been saying, We have a plan to ensure long-term affordability for particularly vulnerable Canadians. The cost of heating oil is 2 to 4 times that of natural gas, depending on which province you live in. It is accelerated over 75% in 2022. It is a plan that actually addresses that in a way that will give savings to people over the long term. It will do it in a manner that fights climate change. I had the opportunity to speak with Premier Eby about it last week, and I believe that the people in British Columbia will have access to exactly the same proposal as everywhere else.
The honourable member from Lethbridge.
The Prime Minister paused the paying of his carbon tax on 3% of Canadian families in the areas where his polls were the lowest. The Liberal Rural Affairs Minister said this. She said that if people in other regions wanted to see a pause as well, then they needed to vote Liberal. But the people in Calgary Skyview did vote for a Liberal Member of Parliament, and yesterday he could have voted to keep the heat on and take the tax off, but instead he voted no to the people of Calgary Skyview. So why is this government so hell-bent on quadrupling their carbon tax that the member from Calgary Skyview left his constituents out in the cold?
Good.
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I have said, we are moving forward on a program that will ensure long-term affordability for people who utilize heating oil, do so in a manner that is consistent with addressing climate change. I have reached out to my counterpart in the government of Alberta, and we will be having conversations about how Alberta can participate in this project moving forward. But I would say once again that it is time, and I think Canadians are expecting the Conservative Party to be able to at least tell folks that they believe in climate change, they have a plan for addressing the climate crisis in a manner that is consistent with long-term economic prosperity and affordability.
Oh, Speaker's going to interrupt.
Order.
Order.
Colleagues.
Colleagues.
Wasn't able to hear who had said that comment, but every member who is recognized by the floor to be able to speak has the right to do so until that time has expired, and the Speaker will let that person know. The honourable member from Lethbridge.
So what I heard from the member opposite is that this government is committed to picking winners and losers, and the winners are the 3% that use oil to heat their homes. They won't have to pay a carbon tax for the next 3 years, but the rest of Canada will. When the Minister for Rural Affairs was asked about this, she said, well, they just need to vote more Liberals in place and then we'll give them our attention, referring to those in other parts of the country, of course. Now, for those that live in the constituency of Edmonton Centre, they did elect a Liberal Member of Parliament, and yet they were not showing that favoritism. They were not showing the benefit of having the carbon tax removed. And so my question is simple. Why is this government so hell-bent that the people of Edmonton Centre still have to pay the carbon tax on their home heating?
It doesn't make any sense, man. I mean, the Liberals would actually get a praise from Canada if they did the right thing.
Obviously offer the Minister an opportunity to respond, but I'll ask all members that I'm quite aware of the time that members have to pose and to respond to their questions. I politely declined their reminders as to how to do that. The Honourable Minister for Health.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And of course, the members opposite know that more than 8 out of 10 Canadians get more back than they pay.
Nope.
But why are we hell-bent on this? Because our planet demands it. Mr. Speaker, 15,000, that's the number of Canadians who died prematurely as a result of air pollution in the country. That cost $114 billion. It is escalating. If we refuse to take action on this, not only do we have a moral and fiscal imperative, but we have an obligation to ensure the party opposite doesn't return to attacking climate policies across the world and move back to an aggressive state where we cease making the project on climate action, Mr. Speaker.
And that's where we're going to end today's video. I'd love to know what you guys think down below on the comments. Do you think that only 3% of Canadians should be exempt for the next 3 years or potentially even ever from paying the carbon tax on specifically home heating? Or do you think it should be 100% of the Canadians? Looking forward to what you have to say down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give a like and subscribe if you haven't yet already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.